News reports have suggested that these next 2 months will be some of the worst of the coronavirus pandemic. But with multiple vaccines in the way, it also seems like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. With a new year and a new municipal budget season around the corner, we're joined by Mayor Curt Leng to discuss how Hamden is planning for a future with and without COVID. We'd like to thank our premier sponsor at Digital Back Office, Palo Alto Networks. Check them out at digitalbackoffice.com or paloaltonetworks.com, as well as our sponsors at Gateway and Housatonic Community Colleges. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state-local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or our member municipal leaders. Mayor Leng, thanks for being here today.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
So we're here today to talk kind of about how Hamden and from that, some other towns might be handling and dealing with some of these issues surrounding COVID. And one of the issues I know that's kind of prevalent right now is kind of people getting, they call it COVID fatigue, people getting tired after months and months and they just don't want to hear it. How do you as a town leader kind of deal with that and keep encouraging people and doing it through this kind of ongoing thing?
You know, the truth is that, you hit it on the head. The fatigue is very real. I mean, I even see it with, with members of my own family and my extended family, some of whom were following things down to the T, and they had a good source because I was involved with, getting information almost daily. And there's certainly been a relaxation of things, even for people that are being conscientious. And, I'm a pretty avid social media user, and I've found that by communicating the important things about protecting your own health and safety and that of others, that I think what's begun to happen because of the fatigue and the frustration is that people are beginning to see it as constant negativity. Mm-hmm. So what I've been trying to think about and trying to adapt. I actually just wrote a column called Dr. No and the Grinch, mm-hmm. Because that's what it seems like I'm coming out as every time.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find a balance between showing positive messages, because there is positive things that are happening both from the COVID front and on many other Hamden fronts. Also trying to come at it with a little bit, perhaps of humor, throwing up, a little something that might be a comic, for example. There was an editorial over the weekend that had people without masks being put on the naughty list by Santa. And when it's important to have a more direct and serious tone, then that's my job to do that, because it's important to get this public safety information out to people.
But in some cases, if you frame the message simply with something like a meme or comic, something that puts the message in simply but isn't full of big long facts, it might actually go farther with parts of the population to be spread more organically because of that.
Some people want, every little detail, and they want to read down to, every specific. And I think some people want a simple message that you can push forward. And, we're going to do both.
Yeah. So I guess one of the hot topics related to this right now is all the talk about the vaccines that hopefully are coming in the not too distant future here. Do you, on the town level, have any plans for the release of the vaccine? I know the CDC is talking about doctors, long-care term facilities getting it first. Do you have a playbook and how you reach out to those groups and coordinate that?
Yeah, actually, we're really actively involved with that with our local health district. And what it looks like right now is that it's going to be, the first round is going to be done in two waves. And phase 1A, they're calling it, is going to be first responders, dispatchers of first responders, hospitals, and nursing homes. And the hospitals and nursing homes will get their shipments directly. And this is all as of now. It's literally as of today. We had a meeting last week, a meeting this week, today. But it's subject to change because these things are fluid. So first responders, hospitals, nursing homes, and then phase 1B being crucial workforce, public works, and Board of Education, all staff members of schools. That's the current, state plan. So we're coordinating with the health district because they're going to be responsible for everything but the hospitals and the nursing homes that'll get it direct shipped, and working out the really nuanced details of exactly how it's done, and how it's done in a safe environment, and how it's done while ensuring that the person that's coming for the vaccine doesn't have COVID, so as to not spread it to others. So there's a lot of layers of it, and the vaccine itself, it's wonderful news. The effectiveness of it, that's the great side of it. The challenging side is that there are very specific steps that need to be taken, and that has to be planned out. So, we're having very regular meetings on how to do that, and how to do that the most effectively as we can, and to convince people that the importance of it, and to demonstrate, hopefully, after you get that first round done, that look, this is safe. We've done it, because right now the health district, the stats that they were looking at showed that only 60% of the public right now is willing to take it, and they've got to cross the 75% threshold for it to be as effective as they want it to be.
The herd immunity sort of thing that they talk about.
Yeah. Yes.
So is it safe to assume that you're in that in the 60% that wants to get it?
I am. I think it's absolutely essential. It's essential to getting back to normal. And I think that the best quote that I heard, Governor's Chief Operating Officer Josh Cabal said, today is dark, tomorrow's going to be darker, but the next day the sun's going to shine. Yeah, and it's very true. It's been a tough year. It's going to be a tough couple more months. So for people to just hang in there, continue
that
doing
finish line is in sight.
We
just gotta keep it
right
in check for a little bit longer.
Right. The vaccine's here far sooner than I think it was expected for anyone, and getting the medical staffs and the first responders to have it first, so they're in that 95% protected. Then it's a real relief, because then people know that they'll have that medical attention, and the hospitals will be able to provide that medical attention, which has been the scariest thing, in my opinion, in the whole pandemic, that you get to a point where you couldn't provide that help. And that's not what's happening.
The health system itself shuts down and can't help people just because of the sheer volume. Yeah. You mentioned that the health district was going to be coordinating that. Is it the health district that encompasses all the surrounding towns? And what kind of coordination is there between the towns? Is it kind of going through the health district, like you in New Haven, for instance? Like how does that work?
So City of New Haven has their own health department, and then we are a member of the Quinnipiac Valley Health District. Okay. We don't have an individual town department, but it is our quasi department, and they represent 4 towns.
Okay. So I assume, I hear what the governor is talking about. He coordinates with New York and Massachusetts. Do you have to kind of, when you talk about, businesses closing potentially, that sort of thing, do you have kind of regular meetings with your counterparts in surrounding towns?
Yeah, absolutely. We have. I found that that's one of the things that's happened over the course of this year, is that there've been more relationship building between mayors and first select persons, because we're all in this and not really knowing. There's not a playbook, for this. There's an emergency management playbook, but this has got there's got far more curveballs than that. Yeah. So, I've developed more relationships, and I've been able to pick up the phone and say, how are you handling this, and share ideas, particularly personally with Mayor Elliker, First Selectman Frieda, and Mayor Bronin. Those have been probably my 3 go-tos when thinking about
on
reaction. And getting the pluses and minuses of doing certain different things, particularly with our neighbors.
Neighbors, maybe some are a little bit bigger, some are a little bit smaller, but you kind of have a lot of crossover.
And we're right in the middle, right?
So some from there, and working together, we'll figure this all out.
And what's been great is that at least in my experience with Mayor Elliker and First Selectman Frieda, like they're very rational about this. They're science based, and their first priority is health and safety. And so if you start out with that as your baseline, you're in pretty good shape.
Have you generally, like working with the state and other things, have you found people be open to working and kind of going both ways?
So yeah, without naming any names, there have certainly been folks that want a little more flexibility, and understandably, when you look at the economics of it, with businesses, restaurants in particular, and others that have wanted to be far more conservative. I think the state has done a remarkable job in the face of this thing, of trying to strike that balance, but really also, especially early on, getting Connecticut in a position to be ahead of the curve a little bit. But it's challenging because now, it's back. Like you said, people don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
The holidays are here, and I hear over and over again, even with my own family, but it's Thanksgiving, but it's Christmas, but it's Hanukkah. Those things, are very real, and there's a sense that it's just once.
Yeah.
But the problem is that I
takes.
think we're going to see in the next couple of weeks is that it's just this once Thanksgiving is going to have a real impact. So what I'm hoping is that I hope I'm wrong first.
Yeah.
But if I'm not, and the numbers go up substantially in that time period, then hopefully people will reflect a little bit more about the holiday season moving forward and New Year's. And if you're going to do something with others, do it outside.
Yeah.
Get that airflow moving. Wear your masks if you're going to be inside. Because there's ways to do things. It's not necessarily an all or nothing proposition.
Yeah.
You look at your risk assessment and you try to reduce risk as much as you can, and that puts you ahead of the game again.
Yeah, kind of everything operates not just on a black or white. There's lots of degrees in between there.
It was a really simple thing, but it was made really clear to me in the beginning. Chief Merweed, who's our fire chief and our emergency director, said, "Look, here's a simple one. I was telling my father-in-law, he's going to the grocery store 3 times a week, and he said, here's risk mitigation. Instead of 3 times, go once. Now
everything you need for the week.
Yeah. Now you've reduced it by 2/3, and it was like, you know what? That applies across the board." And it's a simple concept, but it really is an important one to think about.
CCM, one of our kind of big concerns is always consistency across state budgets, with things like TAR, pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes sort of thing. And the uncertainty in those always kind of makes budgeting season difficult for our towns. When it comes to COVID, and kind of throws the whole idea of uncertainty out of the window, going into 2021, how do you figure out Hamden's budgeting? How do you plan for the unplanned?
So that's a really great question, and the answer is that we're going to continue to watch what's happening really closely, and continue having those discussions with the state. But you have to think about the uncertainty. So, I'm not trying to kind of pass the question, but I don't think we know yet. I can tell you this: if the federal government does not assist states and cities, then you're missing a crucial segment of the economy. You're not going to have the economic recovery that everyone wants globally. So I am hopeful. In fact, I'm optimistic that there'll be a deal struck at the federal level that'll provide some assistance. That assistance will go a long way. Assistance will go a long way to the overall budget pictures. Then it's a matter of trying to hold on to, what the things that are in the budget now. And I do think that the state is going to, the state's going to be a good partner, but we have to keep an eye out on how they're doing financially. And I am concerned that if they're having financial challenges that aren't met by federal assistance, then we're going to have to be cognizant of that and ready for that, and really be nimble during the budget season, because Hamden has 80% of our revenue is driven by property tax.
Yeah.
We can't afford to have our taxes go up, higher or much higher. I think it'd be very detrimental, and we're hoping that we can, be creative on our end, but also have our commitments met.
In the intro, I talked a little bit about how, the vaccines are kind of on the horizon now, which we still got a lot to get through to get there, but it does kind of make you think about the future. What do you have going on coming up in Hamden that isn't COVID related, and how are you prioritizing those issues now, while the uptick is still happening, but the COVID. So how do you plan for it after, while still dealing with right now?
Yeah, it's not. I can tell you, it's really not easy. It's not easy, partially because you get the fatigue yourself. But I've kind of kept myself focused on three things: continuing public safety. So public safety includes COVID response, but it also includes police enhancements and reforms. It includes the fire department and ensuring that they're staffed properly, and that the equipment that has some challenges, is repaired and replaced so that their response times can be as effective for any medical issue. Social services has been number two, making sure that we have our protections there for our many residents that need some help. Just to put it into perspective, the Board of Education, who've been really great partners, not only on the education side of things, but also as a social service partner, they've provided 270,000 meals to Hamden residents since COVID began, and that number is just staggering to me. It's about 1,000 meals a day right now. Our food bank has never shut down. We've actually enhanced, a lot of our programs that come from the Keefe Center, and we got a COVID allocation of CBBG, our Community Development Block Grant, a second allocation that's COVID focused, and will go to support prevention activity, but also support activities, which will include things like warming centers and meals and other safety net issues that are critical to our town. So those are things that I think we have been working on, and we're going to continue to work on enhancing into 21 with the promise of being able to do it a lot more effectively, because hopefully we'll be able to, let's say by summertime, do it together again, because there's an importance to that. This Zoom interaction, it's effective as a tool for meetings, but there's a lot that's lost in not being in a room together and being able to communicate together. And I think I've seen that across every section of not only municipal government, every section of life.
Yeah. So talking about the future and some of the things, is it almost like in some ways COVID ended up being a stress test on systems that were there before and are needed for other things, but it just pushed them to the limit and showed some of the shortcomings of some of the systems we had in place?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. I would say that it actually probably worked both ways. It showed the areas where you really were stronger, maybe even than you expected, because you were able to shift quite quickly from one service delivery model to another, more remote, but still have it be as effective or very close to as effective, which was surprising in some cases, given the amount of change. And yeah, sure, it shows in some areas where you needed to do more in getting messaging out, and in the provision of social services. That just because COVID is here, it's certainly exacerbated some of the financial issues that people have, but a lot of the financial challenges, such as hunger, financial challenges that create issues of hunger. 1 in 6 families in Hamden are families that are on the border or are actually designated as being in that pool of people that are hungry, that are missing food. And you don't think of that as when you think of the town. I don't think of that. I think of any town or city in the state. It's a really high number. Yeah. And that's not COVID. It's just real. So I think that the service delivery of social services and the essentialness of it is something that it has been front and center and will continue forward. And then with the police department, we'll talk about reform and kind of enhancements. It's delivery. So some of the things that we've been working on is trying to have mental health partners and risk partners that might actually be the dispatched entity when a particular call comes in, because they're more qualified to provide the best service.
Yeah.
So, for example, you get a mental health call, you get a challenging mental health call. Our police are trained, but they're not clinicians, and they don't profess to be. So they do their best, but they're not the right tool for the job. And so that's something that I think, whether it's COVID related or whether that's been just something that, because of all the discussions of police reform, has come out really clearly. I think that's an incredible, violence prevention, a model and an opportunity to really put the resources where they'll be the most effective.
Yeah. So it sounds like, some of these changes that are happening right now could, in the long term, make these systems stronger in the future for whatever comes our way next. Hopefully not another thing like this, but whatever comes our way next, we'll prepared for.
Hope not another pandemic, but yes, absolutely. I think it'll put us in a better situation, for that next day and for whatever that next thing is. And then last but it's not least, it's first, is continuing to work on the finances of the town, because if you don't have your financial house in order, even with all the challenges that are out there, then you don't have that foundation to provide the service. So you have to make sure that you're tending to the stewardship of the finances during that time.
You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM.
You mentioned some people, hunger and things like that, and recently there's been a little bit of uptick in Hamden of people experiencing homelessness, and you were quick to act on that, saying during normal times, but especially during these kind of unprecedented times, that helping the most vulnerable was a top priority for you. And you held a virtual town hall on the topic that earned praise from the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness as kind of an innovative way to start to address these problems. Can you tell us a little bit about that virtual town hall?
Sure. So, just globally, there has been, an increase in homelessness, but it would be not being fully transparent if I didn't say the following. It's also been an acknowledgement and a commitment to addressing an issue that already was there. And the way we handled it previously was that there's entities that are there for this, and we could recommend someone go to a particular place. But we realized that if we're going to put meaning behind what we're speaking about, wanting to assist people that are homeless and are having these challenges, then we had to do a little bit more and to do it more proactively. So we've been doing warming centers. This will be our third year. We've partnered with Columbus House on a lot more things, including proactive visits to the homeless with Columbus House, or with our neighborhood initiative, which is our hyper-focused community policing division. And the virtual town hall that was held, it was Dr. Chow of the coalition that reached out to Adam Sendroff, who is our social services czar, and talked about what we were doing and some of the things that we could be doing. And I think the reason was because they appreciated the fact that Hamden and other places, are taking the issue more seriously and are trying to be active, positive players in helping the population. And I'm extraordinarily proud of the work that's been done, and appreciative of Columbus House and some of our community partners that have helped us, from the faith-based community in particular, for our warming centers, and trying to show people that your municipality cares, and if there's some services that you need and are willing to take, that they're there for you.
So it sounds like those partnerships are more important than ever.
Without question. Even pre-COVID, I think my biggest realization as mayor after a few years was, if we don't lean on our partners for things, and not only lean on, but actively pursue our partners to come in and help us out, that you really just can't be successful in the current environment. There aren't the resources, there aren't the minds, there aren't the hands. But if you put the town of Hamden with United Way, as an example, that's a real strong team that you put together. If the town of Hamden is working with CCM on an issue, the resources of a statewide organization, don't do things on your own if you don't have to, because you could be far more effective by bringing in people that have the additional expertise and the additional manpower sometimes.
Yeah. So sometimes it's not even a matter of inventing new things or whatever. It's working with the right people who you may already have a relationship with, and utilizing those tools that are already available to you.
And asking the question. That's, I think, been the biggest thing. If you don't ask, you will not receive. Yeah. The worst thing that you're going to get is, sorry, I can't help you. If you ask a question of Quinnipiac University, of United Way, of one of our faith-based, partners. But the vast majority of the time, the answer has been either yes, or it's been, I might not be able to do that exact request, but here's maybe a couple of things that we could do to help with, a particular issue. And that's happened really left and right throughout this process.
A little bit more positive thing related to this, but another resource that has been increasingly utilized throughout the pandemic has been Connecticut's parks. And it's only been 2 years in Hamden since Sleeping Giant, got torn up by the hurricane there. And also, I think Hamden is kind of unique in the area for having some areas that are dense and very city-like, but you also have Sleeping Giant, some of these more open areas. Have you done anything recently to preserve open spaces? Anything like investing in more outdoor activities, having seen sort of how popular they have become?
Yeah, actually, yes. Like start off with, I've recognized that Hamden and Connecticut, I'm very thankful to be living here, because there's so many more opportunities to go out and do something outside. My son and I, we used to go for a day trip, and the day trip might have been to an indoor laser tag and bowling, or something of that nature. And we've been able to find all kinds of different things to go on different hikes and to explore really interesting things that are in the outdoors that are free, they're good exercise. It's getting fresh air, and we started fishing for the first time. I hadn't fished since I was a teenager, and we found different locations. I caught one, and he jumped off a foot away from me into a bush. My son caught 3 in about an hour on one particular day.
We'll chalk it up to beginner's luck.
It's a challenge, but those resources are so important, and they've this has really demonstrated their importance, because it gives people something to do, an outlet that you can't you shouldn't assume you just have at at your home or in every location. And you asked about have we done anything with expansion? We've been working over the last probably 6 years. It's taken a long time. It's been a process, but we were awarded a $420,000 grant from the state of Connecticut, and we've put in about $250,000. So it was a 2/3, 1/3 scenario, roughly, to acquire a 50-acre expansion of Brooksvale Park. That was a property that was adjacent to the park, and just expand that park's footprint. And talk about an amazing resource to be able to go to. Brooksvale Park has everything. It has trails, it has fields, it has it has picnic areas. It's really a wonderful location. And I tell you, I go there, and in 5 minutes I feel more peaceful. And that's something that's hard to get to. And our town is fortunate too, geographically, because there are areas that are more densely populated and less densely populated when it comes to homes. But there's really park opportunities, state parks and local parks, really throughout. You have West Rock, you have East Rock, you have Sleeping Giant, you have Brooksvale Park, and then you have Rochford Field, and you have Volano Park, Bassett Park. You have a myriad of locations, and that was always part of Hamden's focus. Well, before this, was making sure that that system, our park system was active and alive and refreshed and clean, and new playscapes were put in, because we found that Hamden families really value that. Very high on their list. There's public safety and there's taxes, but then when you get to the next things, what we've found is that what a town provides for recreational opportunities for people to come together, that piece of it's not a good choice right now, but the alternative is a place to get together separated, and so luckily we had that, I think, a little bit. We were a little better placed infrastructure-wise than maybe other places.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting how some of those investments in parks and stuff also can pay dividends in just growth and stimulating the economy around places. Like, I don't know if it's a town park, but right in Hamden, I think about the Micro Depot being right off of the rail trail there, and how the rail trail is an attraction and people are coming up and down it, and there's a restaurant right there off of it, kind of how it all ties together.
Without question, and thank you for bringing up. I can't believe that I didn't mention the Farmington Canal. The Farmington Canal has been, a center point of release for some people, a respite for folks, and as a development driver, without question. You mentioned the micro expansion. Another one that I would mention is the Canal Commons, a development that was done, a very large development on Mather and Dixwell, close to Mather and Dixwell, on Mather Street. And one of the reasons that they chose there was that it was right connected to the canal line, and they filled up and had waiting lists immediately. Despite the fact that a good number of their units are pretty expensive, and it's a beautiful location, and they're looking to develop further. And I do think that brings economic value with it, as well as social value.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. So talking about the economy a little bit, it's faced a pause, kind of a reset, depending on how you look at it. And Hamden's longtime economic development director, Dale Krupp, just retired last week. How do you plan to proceed with economic development, and what are some of the things you're looking at to build the economy locally?
So that's always a real challenge, and having Dale retire now, although we knew it was coming. He's been here for a long time. I don't think anybody has served through as a department director through as many administrations, Democrats, Republicans, all different personalities. I actually worked with Dale, and then was Dale's boss. So we've run the whole scale. But the good thing is he's not disappearing. Dale's still in Hamden. We're very fortunate that he and his board developed the Hamden Economic Development Corporation, which is still doing redevelopment work in town. So that connection is still there. And then we're working to, certainly recruit someone that is forward thinking in the economic development area. The other thing that we've done and is starting to really, show, I think, a little bit more now, is to work on our development departments. And in the next upcoming budget, one of the things that is going to be a focus for us to try to get some consensus around is putting together some of our development departments that are separated now under one umbrella, so that we have more of like a one-stop shop. Because I've had a lot of contractors that have come and talked to me over the years about how challenging it is to either navigate residents having a challenge navigating the different approvals, despite despite good attempts. It's not, I don't think that people aren't attempting to do it. It's just that the process is cumbersome if you don't know it and haven't done it for a long time. And on the contractor side, they've had challenges with getting applications and doing it digitally. For example, we put our building department into a digital format. Having them come together so you have a one-stop shop and kind of an ombudsman that they'll say, listen, okay, what are your needs? Let me see if I can walk you through it. I think will be an incredibly refreshing thing to have. And if you have that kind of welcoming presence for your development departments, that word's going to get around pretty fast, because the bad reputation gets around really fast, and I think the change will do the same.
Yeah. So through streamlining some of those processes for the developers and stuff, you're almost letting them do some of the work for you. Like, if you make it easier, they're going to want to develop that stuff.
If you build it, they will come.
Exactly.
Yes.
Speaking of building, we're talking about development. We talked a little bit about parts of open space. With the open spaces that are available, do you have plans to increase housing stock in Hamden? And if so, is affordable housing part of that idea or other possible developments?
Yeah, I think affordable housing is always something you have to be thinking about, because affordable housing isn't even a word I like to use. It's workforce housing.
Yeah.
Housing is expensive in Connecticut, and we have the most regressive tax system in the world. In the United States, I think certainly, in the property tax being our almost sole source of local revenue. So we are open to development opportunities. And one thing in particular that we're doing proactively is there's a property on Hartford Turnpike that was a state of Connecticut property that was used for different things over the years. There was a proposal within the decade to consider turning it into a prison facility, and we opposed that idea because it's right smack dab in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and literally a stone's throw from a church, 2 daycares, and a school. Just not a good selection for that environment. And so we made it clear that we were interested in being in the mix if that were ever become available. And through a little bit of lobbying and discussions, it did, and we had the opportunity, and we are working on the opportunity of buying that property and developing it. So you develop it, you bring it onto the tax rolls. You have active control over what it becomes, as opposed to no control whatsoever. And the development studies that are being done right now, the market studies that are being done on that property for us, are showing that that housing, assisted living, are probably some of the most likely proposals that you're going to get. So that's one specific I can mention.
Yeah, I think you mentioned they're bringing it onto the tax rolls, because that is an important point. Is we are so dependent in Connecticut on the local property tax, and that hunk of property that you're talking about was state land, and therefore was not taxable for you as a town. So it was just sitting there,
right,
not doing anything for you or for the state for however long it was.
It was an expense on the state because they actually meticulously maintained it to their credit. So and it's 40 acres plus, so it's not a simple parcel to keep under maintenance, and it wasn't doing anything for Hamden. So there's a lot of work still to be done, but that's a potential for a big win-win situation.
Yeah. So I guess kind of in closing, looking forward, is there anything else that Hamden has plans for 2021 that has you excited?
That it's not going to be 2020.
We're all going to be excited about that one.
I think that 2021 has a lot of promise. I think that we were built. We had a lot of good momentum working on bringing our community together and trying to face issues of equity and expanding social service opportunities that we discussed before. And I think that 2021 is very ripe with potential for continuing and expanding upon those things that are important to us value-wise, some of which we've been able to enhance during COVID, and some of which we haven't been able to address as effectively during COVID. Having our true race dialogues and equity dialogues and meaningful plans that come out of those that you can actually implement to do something with, as opposed to just talking about it. Not that the discussions aren't important. I don't mean that there's value to the discussion, but if I just talk about, it's important, that's nice. Well, what are we doing about it? So you have to have those real dialogues. And we've had some dialogues that are virtual, but it's just not the same. We
had our CCM Cares series we just did with some speakers.
That was wonderful. When I was mentioning that, I want to make sure to be clear that I wasn't.
But in 2021, taking some of those discussions that we had this fall while we were all stuck inside and implementing them in the real world when we can all get outside is something to look forward to.
And building on it and allowing then your local people to interact with each other and be cognizant a little bit more about, okay, these are things that I hadn't really thought about or learned about myself, and how I'm going to act in this world now. We will look back on 2020 and see a lot of things that were negative, but we're also going to look back on 2020, and I'm hopeful that we'll also be looking back on some things that through a tragedy, through a series of tragedies, there are some things that'll come out of it that will be positive for society.
Yeah, well, maybe we can all emerge a little bit stronger. If we,
Wouldn't it be
together.
nice?
It would be nice. Well, Mayor, thanks so much for speaking with us today.
My pleasure. I always enjoy the discussions talking about our municipal issues.
Thanks to our premier sponsor, Digital Back Office Palo Alto Networks, which you can check out at digitalbackoffice.com and paloaltonetworks.com. Also thanks to our sponsors, Gateway Community College and Housatonic Community College. Learn more at gatewayct.edu and housatonic.edu. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our executive producer, Christopher Gilson is our producer, Harry Draws is on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for our CCM chat series on our YouTube page.